So, welcome everyone to another episode of Anita Das podcast. This is your invitation to explore topics related to holistic healing, therapy, spirituality, transformation, and much more. So, I'm incredibly excited for this episode to welcome Melissa Amos for today. And the title of our episode, our topic is The Birth of Akashic Reiki. So, welcome. So, before I jump in, I'm just going to give a very brief description. And obviously, I'll be talking to Melissa. She'll be expanding. And there's also some narrative as well. Melissa's a spiritual psychotherapist. She's an author and creator of Akashic Reiki. This is a healing modality that brings together Reiki, Akashic Records, and psychospiritual practices. Her work empowers individuals to live from their true nature. She's also the founder of Soul School and Soul Space. This is where she trains practitioners and leaders to work with energy, consciousness, and purpose. So, at the core or heart of her work is her belief that we're not here to fix ourselves, we're here to really remember who we are and live from that. So, I'm going to leave it there. Welcome, Melissa. Lovely to see you.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. So, first of all, would you be able to share with our audience just how you came on this path of healing, how you knew it was your path, just a little bit of background just about yourself and how you came on to this
Well,
journey? Yeah.
I think with anyone on these journeys, when you look back, you start to see the breadcrumbs of how it was meant to be this. And for me, I was really blessed that my grandma was a hypnotherapist and NLP practitioner, and she did tapping. And from a really young age, she used to use these techniques with me and hypnotize me and take me on these journeys, which really helped me understand that my brain doesn't have to be in charge. Now, as somebody who goes to her brain a lot, like a really deep thinker, and I can get lost in the inner world, I look back now and realize quite how helpful. I don't know where I'd be, I would say, if it wasn't for her. But then life goes on, and I found myself in a corporate position. I worked for a car dealership, lot of pressure, stress going on. And I'd kind of lost that. Like, I still was really very interested in like how the mind and body came together. But spirituality wasn't something that I really thought much about. Pressure became bigger, and I found myself having a massage one day, and then I felt her hands heat up, and I was like, what's going on? And she said, oh, I just gave you some Reiki. And I was like, oh. And that was the start of it, really, because within a few months, I learned it. I was super curious. I was like, well, what is this? And I learned Reiki and realized that I'd shut myself off to this whole realm of possibility. I'm a scientist, really, by nature. And now I had this power coming out of my hands that I didn't quite understand it. And so my curious mind went on a quest to try and find out as much as I could. And like yourself, Anita, I love to learn. And I learned all the things like manifestation and energy healing and how the mind affects the body and how energy moves and changes in the vibrational scale. And then in about 2016, I found the Akashic Records, which is your soul's library. And I had this incredible session with somebody that how we met is a whole nother story. And it was in that session that the record said to me, you're going to be working in the records. And I was like, okay. And that was then. And then here we are, much learning later, quit the corporate job and started my own business and was doing readings and tarot and psychic work and healing work and teaching Reiki and all of that. And then after my psychotherapy training, really it all came together.
Yeah, absolutely. So we both trained in similar modalities. I just love learning as well, exploring just as much as you. It's fascinating. It's a lifelong learning, really, isn't it? So I guess the big question here is, can you share how the original idea came about?
It's a fun story. I have been channeling for some time, and I have a series of guides that I channel. I've been delving into that a lot more recently. And I think anyone who you channel as well, right?
Yeah.
I think anyone who does that, we begin to open our mind into different possibilities. So this was all running along in the background. And at the same time, I had spent the last 2 years running my soul school, which is my Akashic Records training, teaching people how to become Akashic Records practitioners and to read the records and understand past lives and how they're affecting us and influencing us. And that was running, and it was really successful. While I was training and while I was doing a lot of one-to-one sessions, I kept seeing this flame. So there was this flame that kept coming into my sessions, and I got curious about it, and it was just there, and it felt like it was drawing me in. And I also began to realize that when people wanted to work in the Akashic Records, there was this barrier. There was this thing of, can I read a past life? Is this even true? Like, how? Because not everyone is as psychic as you are, right? And not everybody trusts that. And what I was feeling is that the Akashic Records, which is this realm of non-judgment, of unconditional love, of everything happens as it's meant to happen, and we're always evolving, had this energy frequency that wanted to come to Earth. It wanted to be used and utilized on Earth. And I could feel that. And the records were saying to me, we're recruiting, and you're just doing the job to help them in there. So I could see all this stuff happening, and I was asking questions like, well, how do we bring in the energy and the frequency of the records without this barrier of having to be able to read past lives? That question was there. And then at the same time, I was running my business and it was going really well. And then I was starting to see these hitting points. And I started to see that in the healing space, we were coming at it from the wrong angle. Because everyone I was speaking to was coming from this space of, I've got this problem and I need fixing, right? You go to psychotherapy. Why? Because you've got a problem. And what do we get the interventions? Well, here's how you fix it. And when I'm in the records, that doesn't make sense. When I'm in the records, it's, well, nothing's broken. So why are we healing? And the answer I got was, well, to evolve, to grow, to become, like to learn and to expand. Then I got very curious. And it was actually when I was in Bulgaria, I was on a retreat and I got woken up. It was about 3 or 4 in the morning. I got woken up and something told me to go onto my balcony, and the balcony overlooked these beautiful mountains, and which I couldn't see because it was pitch black. There were like just stars in the sky. I couldn't even see a moon. It was like a beautiful, clear night. And I sat on the balcony, and the flame that I kept seeing in my sessions just like appeared in my mind's eye. It was just there. And I sat with it, and I felt it was almost as if the heavens opened. Like it was like there was this gap in the sky. And I started to receive this, what I now know was the attunement for Akashic Reiki. I received it and I was like, whoa, what was that? Went inside, grabbed my laptop, typed so quickly, like the journey that I'd been taken on. And then woke up the next morning and I was like, something happened last night and I don't quite know what it was. I didn't know it wasn't, this is the Akashic Reiki attunement. It was just this frequency that came through. But then I started to notice that I was holding space differently. The Akashic Records was speaking to me, if you like, differently. And I came home and I was running my soul school and I gave them the attunement. I passed on what I'd written that night to my soul school students who were coming to the end of their year. And that was where it all changed, because my students were coming back to me and going, it's like I can channel the energy out of my hands. And I'm finding that now I've had this, we can just go into the records and the changes are already started before I'm even speaking. I was like, well, we are onto something here. That was 2 years ago.
Right. Okay.
18 months ago. I let it develop. I sat with it and I asked what was needed from me. And actually the psychospiritual aspect started to come through. So for the listener, Anita and I, we did our psychospiritual psychotherapy training and our counseling training together. And it was incredible. We learned 100 techniques more, probably, right? Yeah. Across all these different spells. It was absolutely incredible. And with soul plan in there and all of this cool stuff. Also, what I did was I brought all of that into the Akashic Records. And I'm like, why does some of this work and some of it not? And it started to give me answers. And I'm like, well, this is really interesting. Things like tapping and the TAT, do you remember that?
Yes.
And dream analysis.
Yeah.
Like all these different things. Like non-duality was a big one. Like, why do these things work and why do they stop working? Like, why do they all have a limit? And when I understood it from the element of the Akashic Records, it all made more sense. We were trying to fix it. No one's broken. How do we evolve it? How is the
Right.
frequency? All of this stuff.
Okay. So can I just ask a couple of questions just based on what
Yeah.
you're saying? So the first one, you mentioned the flame, which sounds amazing. The Akashic Reiki attunement that came through, the source of that attunement, where was that coming from the Akashic Records itself, or was it a combination with the Reiki energy? Just
Yeah.
how that
So
came through? And
Reiki
how did
and
the flame look like? Was it like a blue flame? How did it look? It sounds amazing.
That's a great question. So my Reiki journey started with a Sui Reiki, and then I've learned like 9 different forms of Reiki because who knew I like to learn. The last Reiki that I really kind of landed into was the Holy Fire. What I loved about the Holy Fire is that it comes from the element, it comes from what they call the high heavens. So it's still, Reiki is universal life force energy. And the Holy Fire comes from William Lee Rand's language, a more refined space from it, like from the higher heavens, which is a realm, if you like, that I sit really well with, where the angelics, the divine masters, like all of that frequency comes in. So that's what I've been working on for the last about 8 or 9 years. And the Akashic flame, this attunement seemed to come from that same stream. So it was very similar to when I do my Holy Fire attunements in my classes, that heaven opens up and I'm tapping into this field. Now, when I sat with it afterwards and I queried, like, where is it? How is it? Because at this point, it didn't have a name. It wasn't called Akashic Reiki. I didn't know, right? And what they showed me was that it actually comes from the element of spirit. So like from our spirit, which is the part of us that's still connected, or that kind of, it's almost like the sea where all of the souls exist. Yeah. So it comes from spirit.
The monad then, or would it be?
Well, so
Okay.
so spirit and the soul. So the soul is the fragment of the spirit that comes and incarnates into the human. And so what they showed me is it comes from spirit into soul. So it knows me completely. And then through our Akashic Records, and that's where we received it. So it comes from spirit into soul. And then I receive it through my Akashic Records. So it codes my records. And now I hold it. So it's informing me all of the time. Does that make sense?
Okay. And how's it integrating the Reiki aspect then? Is that coming through?
Yeah, so Reiki means universal life force energy. The beauty of Reiki is you don't really have to do anything.
So I trained, I think you did as well, in angelic Reiki. Yeah. So that part of that thread is, as the client comes, you see them in their perfect divine nature, which is what you're saying, which seems similar to your Akashic Reiki, doesn't it? So it kind of falls in line with that, doesn't it?
Yes. The difference is, and this is a question I get asked a lot, well, what's the difference between Akashic Reiki, Holy Fire, Sui Reiki, angelic Reiki?
That was one of my questions.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And truly for me, just in terms of frequency, we can speak about the processes, but just in terms of frequency, the Akashic field is a field of non-judgment, unconditional love, and evolution. That's what it holds. Everything that is recorded without judgment. Whatever I've done, they love us anyway. And it happened. I'm not trying to change anything, but because it happened now, there's growth. There's always growth. It's never static. So when we are working with that frequency and channeling that frequency from our hands or from our mouth or from our being, from our intention, it changes the way that we're holding whatever's presenting to us. It changes how what they showed me was like how we're walking our path, which they presented to me as walking the Akashic way, which means what? Which means I know that I'm not broken, which means I know that I'm always evolving, means I know that everything is an invitation for me. Everything is an invitation for me into what? Into knowing myself better, because what knows you better than your soul's library? into continual growth, because I'm always moving, we're always creating the same story, into knowing what I'm writing in my records.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
And so the difference is that we're now not just pulling through universal life force energy and channeling that, which is incredible, by the way. We are now, like, now it's more personal. Like, now it's about who I am as a soul. And this was the key. And the words came through for the attunement. The command was, it will activate your purpose. And that's the difference. This is what we're working with.
Okay. Because there are lots of other schools out there for Akashic Records. I think Linda Howe, Ernesto Ortiz, there's lots of difference. The main difference is what you're saying is it's obviously the records. For those who've been watching, maybe anyone who's not familiar, viewers, with what Akashic Records is, they're saying it's like almost like a spiritual eternal spiritual database. Every old library of life, sometimes referred to, where every thought is thought, every emotion is felt, every action taken across is held. From what you're saying, the difference between this and other schools of Akashic Records is it's focusing on the soul purpose as well. Yeah.
There is that, but here's the thing, like, did I mention I'm a geek and I like to learn? I've studied a lot of different Akashic Records programs, right? And the thing that I kept seeing was the lens that we were seeing the Akashic Records through was the lens of the past. This is what happened to me, and so this is who I am. And I've always worked with the Akashic Records from this is what's going on now. Let's discover what happened, right? That's led me here. And as we change the energy and the frequency from it, we change the trajectory of us moving forward.
Yes.
When I've been doing this inquiry, and particularly when the attunement came through, the lens of it changed, because it really came to the point of, we are always writing our Akashic Records. And so what are we writing now? And it came to this point of empowerment, not that I need to keep changing the past, because I don't, because actually in level 1 and 2, we don't go into past lives at all. We are trusting implicitly and channeling implicitly the frequency of the records. So this is where, like, the Reiki similarity or the Reiki adjacence comes in, right?
Okay.
I'm channeling the frequency of the Akashic Records, which holds it all. And me as the human, I don't need to manipulate it. I don't need to micromanage it and go, well, that past life caused you this, so let's go and change it. What we're actually doing is we're taking this essence and letting that do the healing without me having to get involved, really, apart from holding the space, doing the practices, etc.
Okay. So it's in that space of being rather than doing. And so, for example, I did angelic Reiki separately as well. I did Akashic Records training separately. And in that, some of them you do what's called like past life healing, soul retrieval, different kind of techniques. From what you're saying, it's just the energy does kind of whatever it is needed for the client, and you're holding that energy in that space. Is that
in essence? Yes. So the flame is holding that for you. So we don't have to, the flame's doing the heavy lifting.
Okay.
Right? And our human brain, like, this is involved, right? And our human brain needs something to work on and to attach to. So in addition to this, what I've done through the program and through the training is I've taken the psychospiritual techniques, the things that work, and I see work from an Akashic level.
Okay.
I've taken even some like NLP techniques and working with the body. There's quite a few somatic techniques in there as well, which we're using to almost anchor the energetic change that we're making. And so actually the first 6 weeks, the level 1, which is all about self, we're learning how to work with the Akashic Records as our guide, essentially. Like, what am I recording in there? What's being fed to me? How do I come essentially into full acceptance of where I am? Not with that's my lot, but I'm in acceptance now, I'm growing, right? And I've developed a range of different protocols and interventions and techniques that we can use in there, which we're actually creating the change from the level of the Akashic Records, bringing the mind on board, bringing the body on board, and bringing our action on board. Like, now what is the question we ask at the end of every session, like, okay, like now I've made this change, now what? Because now we're creating future records,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So we have the flame doing the frequency work for us. So I don't have to, I'll give you an example. An example?
That would be great. An example would be really good.
So one of the protocols with is the flame, right? And we're working with the flame to let's say we have a symptom, and it can be physical, mental, emotional, physical, right? So one of my clients who's learning right now, she came into the class, she had a shoulder issue.
Mm-hmm.
And what she'd been trying to do was fix her shoulder, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what we do when there's a problem. I want to fix it. And what we did is we pulled that out, like, well, actually, maybe it's not about fixing the shoulder. Maybe it's about understanding the shoulder. Maybe the shoulder has got a message for you. Because remember, from the view of the Akashic Records, everything's an invitation. So now I have a pain in my body. There's an invitation here to what? And so we bring in the flame that's doing the heavy lifting. I'm not asking her to love her shoulder and the pain. I'm only asking her to bring in the flame. And the flame holds this element of non-judgment, unconditional love. I'm always growing. So that comes in, and then we become the witness to what's happening.
I see.
And quite often a message might come out. Quite often an understanding might come out. A movement might come out, or not, because it doesn't matter, because it's recoding from this level. It's changing the frequency. And for her, what she discovered was the shoulder was holding this. It was, for her, it was actually a lot of fear of what she'd been diagnosed with a thing, and she was scared about what it was moving forward. And the shoulder was like frozen and scared to move forward. As we brought this element in and she witnessed it and she just came into acceptance, I wasn't asking her to accept the pain, because now we're bypassing. I'm asking her to bring the flame, which will do the acceptance for her, and she's witnessing it. Yes. It released, it moved, it served its purpose of, well, my invitation is for you to understand this. She understood the lesson, and she turned up to the class the next week and she's like, my shoulder pain has gone. And I wasn't trying to make the shoulder pain go. She's like, this is my evidence that this can work not just on a mental and emotional level, but this can actually work with the physical.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so actually, if you want to know what's happening from like on a conceptual level from here, this record that she was holding, which came possibly through her diagnosis and maybe before, there's probably a past life thing in there, was held in the frequency of shame, which is cold and hard, if you like. It's almost like it's held in a rock, so it can't move. And if we know about emotion, it means energy in motion, right? It wants to move, but right now it's there and it's solid. When I meet it with a higher frequency, really neutrality is where we want to go for. Willingness is a higher frequency. I'm willing to look. I'm not just trying to fix it. It changes the frequency that the record is being held at. Yeah. So it's no longer sitting in this box of cold ice. Now it's fluid. Now it has this ability to move. And when it has this ability to move, well, then it's serving its purpose and it's letting us experience it in a different way.
Okay. So it's like that change in perception or perspective is allowing that blockage to melt away and
Essentially
holding that frequency. So in the traditional ways, we would access the records through a prayer. Are you saying that you mentioned bringing in the flame? Is that part of the attunement, or that's the bridge, right?
Yeah. So once you've had the attunement, remember I said the spirit to the soul, and then it comes through the Akashic Records. So that's the bridge. You bring the flame into mind, and that brings you into your records. And we understand that the records are always recording. So we don't always have to go into them to work with their magic, because we're always recording in them. This moment right now, the listeners, our voices, what they're experiencing, how they're feeling, anything that comes up is all in their records right now. So what am I recording? And then if you've ever wondered where your thoughts come from, well, maybe they come from the stack of records that you have and it's bringing you a dominant thought, right? So we're working with it like all the time, but without having to micromanage our thoughts, because the flame's doing the lifting.
I see. Okay, so this flame really is the key difference. Okay. And because I know we've done the soul plan, is there any kind of fragments of that, similarities? I know we work with the hologram in part of the healing part of that.
Yeah,
We're basically aligning to our original divine blueprint. Is there an element of that in this as well?
absolutely. This knowing that everything is an invitation. When we look at soul plan, for those who don't know soul plan, we have the 6-pointer star, like I have behind me, which has our, like, basically our life path, right? Like the things that we're working on, our challenges, our talents, and our goals, right? And what I loved about Soul Plan was that reframe of our challenges are there to strengthen our talents, and our talents are there to pull us through our challenges. And when we can bring them together, then we see how these things which we might think were there to floor us are actually there to strengthen us. It's this evolutionary path. And I love that. And one of the things that we do in Soul Plan is once we've identified, okay, well, this is what's been going on, and we'll understand more about our traits and personalities and the things that we're working on, is we then kind of surrender it, right, into source. And then it brings back the divine blueprint without the overlays that sits on top, right? So in Akashic Reiki, we are essentially doing that from the level of the Akashic Records, because what I've seen is that we have this soul blueprint. Yes, we have this thing that's like, this is who you are in truth. This is your journey that you are having as a human in this life. Yeah, like this is the thing. These are the things you're going to go through. Not you're going to get a divorce and you're going to get sick and all of that. But these are the lessons you're going to do. You're going to learn unconditional love. You're going to break through your expression traits, or like whatever it is, right? You're going to balance these polarities of abundance versus barrenness, right? And that's perfect. There's a perfection in there. But then what happens is we live life, and our overlays, we start to receive programmings, we start to receive information, we start to take on strategies. Yeah. This is like our psychology. We're like, okay, well, when I was a kid, I got ignored for this. So therefore, I now need to make myself small. And then that runs our life. And so we start to see and live our life through the lenses of these. I think that's the language they use in Soul Plan, these overlays of what sits on top of the divine blueprint. Am I making sense?
Yeah. So you're also talking about beliefs and patterns, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Beliefs, patterns, the strategies that we've taken, the lenses which we see the world, like, well, I am just like that. This is my personality, right? And we take them on as truth, but they're not truth. What's true is the soul blueprint that sits underneath it. So actually what we're understanding is that these overlays, they're not broken. They were the strategies that we've taken that helped us in the moment. And they are invitations back into, how do I become more of myself? Because we were meant to have these overlays, these strategies, in order to strengthen the progression of us as a soul. And so actually, what we're doing in Akashic Reiki is these overlays our invitation in, right? So the loops that we find ourselves in, and the ceilings that we keep hitting across, and the things that annoy ourselves about ourselves, right? We're using them as like the gateway in, like, okay, well, here's the thing that I'm not enjoying anymore, or that's controlling me right now. And we're meeting that with the flame, unconditional love, non-judgment, continual evolution. And we are, where it's available, inviting for these overlays to dissolve. So I'm not trying to solve something. We're dissolving this identity that we've discovered as truth, and moving it back into our soul blueprint, like the truth of who we are, which strengthens our soul's journey. Like that bit doesn't get lost. It comes that, okay, tick, I've now understood more about.
So that dissolution, is that from a combination of the Akashic Reiki and the psychospiritual practices and techniques as well?
Exactly. So the flames doing the work, and then we are bringing through different practices to anchor it, because we humans need that. Like, we need to be involved in the healing, or do we need to, like, we like to be involved in the healing because
Yeah.
that anchors it more. Now I'm taking an action. Now I am showing willingness, which is quite a high frequency on like the vibrational scale. I'm showing a willingness, an acceptance, maybe even love, maybe even gratitude to something that was in the past held in frustration or anger or guilt or shame or denial.
Yeah. So I guess the difference with the soul plan, obviously, it's based on the sound vibration of the birth name, but this is it's a slightly different origin, isn't it, that we're looking at? Well, two questions actually coming out. One is, if I was new to this and I was coming as a client, what would a client expect for their Akashic Reiki session? And the other question that the client might have is, how will this benefit me? And are you able to just kind of share some thoughts around that?
Sure. It will most likely be quite different to other energy healings that you've had. One of the things with Akashic Reiki that I felt very important is, in this day and age, I wanted it to be as effective if you're lying here in person with me or if we're doing this online, because many of us are doing it online.
Yeah.
So it makes no odds. I think the real thing to understand is that you're being met from this space of the Akashic Records. You're being met from the space of unconditional love, non-judgment. Like, you are who you are and no one's trying to fix you. And we are literally recoding, if you like, or meeting the frequency as to the thing that's influencing you, the thing that's been guiding you, the thing that's been giving you the thoughts and the feelings and the actions that have led you to where you are. And so in a session, this is not you getting lost in the story. This is not you saying, well, these are all the terrible things and that I'm counseling you to make it better. This is what is happening. And now we move beyond the story and move into the truth of who I am. And so what we feel, and what I'm seeing more and more, is there are these spontaneous healings, seemingly spontaneous healings happening, like I explained with my client the other day. But more than that, it's this feeling of lightness, like those overlays, those things that have been running our show have been limiting who we can become. And so what I'm finding more and more is, what people are saying to me is, Melissa, I just find like I'm doing the thing that I didn't let myself do before. And I don't know how I've done it, because I've just done it. And I know how they've just done it, because those things that were driving them before, which were met in, for whatever reason, in shame or doubt or fear, are no longer running the show anymore. What's running the show is this divine blueprint, which always has your highest potential in mind. The intuition piece, I think we're all intuitive. I think that actually those overlays are like the block, if you like, or the barrier between that soul and brain communication. So they're starting to dissolve. So people are becoming more intuitive in that way, psychic, if that's part of your path and that you want to do, and this communication in with the body. These are all the changes that we're beginning to see through my students, more so because obviously they're in the process. And this is new. This has been out for less than 6 months. So I'm starting to see how it's happening through the client journeys as well.
Right. So in the session, would the client be talking initially, like a talking therapy, and then would they be lying down like Reiki and receiving energy healing? Is it a
Both.
combination of both?
Yeah, there's a number of protocols. We can just do it like completely hands-on. That's fine. You're just channeling the frequency. Most often we will start with like, just tell me what's happening, right? So like, for example, we have the love protocol, which is probably the most popular one. And the love protocol really starts with like, tell me what's going on. Right. So we're like, what is it? Like, what is it that brought you here? What's the pain? What's the doubt? What's the feeling? Whatever. So there will be that element of talking. But I've trained the students to not get lost in that, because from a records point of view, we're then just rewriting the story again and again in our records, right? It's not that helpful. And so we're doing that. And then we're coming into the understanding. So if we're on Zoom, it might be that the client is putting their hands on the place that they need to do. So they're not passive. They're part of this journey. And then we will come into depending on the connection between the client or how open the client is, it might be that they start voicing what's happening and what's coming through, and like everything's accepted. Doesn't matter. You can say whatever you want or whatever comes through. There's no way to do this right. Or it might be that the practitioner is kind of voicing for you through that channel. And then we'll move into an embodiment exercise. So like what's happening next? Like how is that changing? What's on the other side of this? So they can be involved. There's other techniques which are bigger. We have like a recode protocol. We sometimes move into the healing chambers. So they can be quite diverse, but essentially you will show up. We'll start with where you are. We will always meet you where you are because that's the record you're writing today in this moment. You'll be held in this level of acceptance, which we need to. We did the psychotherapy training together. When you're held in acceptance, like it dissolves the shame, right, that we've been holding. There'll be that element, and then you'll come away with not just, oh my God, what happened, with okay, now what? We can see we're not now scared to move into the new pattern of behavior.
Right. So there's multiple sessions depending on the clients. I'm assuming it's not just a one-off session.
Yeah. When we come away from I'm healing to fix something, which is the old model, and we come into I'm healing to evolve, we realize that having one session can be relaxing, like sure, but the majority of my students, we're offering a minimum of 4, ideally 6. Sometimes it's more, because we're continuing this path. We're not trying to fix anything. You're on your soul purpose.
Vision. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. No, perfect. So that's given an idea to viewers about what a session would be like. So that's quite interesting. The other question was, if someone's thinking of training and becoming a practitioner, can you share a bit more about like how many attunements, levels, and the pathway to becoming a practitioner and what's involved there?
The training's so good, I have to say. So the first 6 weeks, you'll receive your level 1 attunement, which is you're activating your purpose. And so the first 6 weeks are really getting to know the flame, the principles, and the pillars of Akashic Reiki. So really understanding like what is it that we're moving for? Like how is this changing the way that we are showing up as a soul in a human? Like what is our progression? And naturally from there, we do start with the things that we don't love about ourselves, right? After week 3, you have 3 protocols that you can use, that when something comes up, because stuff comes up for me every day, right? So you'll have the practices and the techniques, which some of which, by the way, are 2 minutes that you can bring through in the moment when it's happening, to be able to work with this. So I start to see changes after week 2. People are already like beginning to embody that flame. So first 6 weeks are all about self. You'll have that attunement. You'll have some grounding practices. We start working on your intuitive development, and also this connection in with the mind and body. But we also start to bring in an understanding of like manifestation practices as well.
Right.
Because when our energy is so good, just actually manifesting from soul purpose rather than I just want the Ferrari. So it brings this whole different understanding of how to live energetically and how to live as a human in the world that we live in now, and be more empowered, essentially. Then, so that's first 6 weeks. Then level 2 is another 6 weeks. And this really is the practitioner's path. Like, how am I holding space for others? You get more techniques. We go deeper into the more psychospiritual aspects of things, how to run the successful business, how to manage your energy so that we are not entangled in with our other people, how to hold that space in a way that is integral, and work with that. Really, what you receive from beginning to end is, first of all, a deep understanding on the truth of the energetics, right? Like really, truly, like why energetics work, why they're so important, and how I am showing up in this. Like what is it that I'm doing? If I'm holding space with clients, if I'm walking in the world, if I'm trying to manifest, if I'm trying to be more like in my feminine or in my masculine or in my like whatever, like working with cards, whatever it is, what does that mean in truth? That's the first 6 weeks. And then it's, how am I holding space for my clients? So even if you're a coach, even if you're not into like, even if you're not a healer or you're not into that, but you're mentoring people or you're working with people from a business sense or from a coaching sense, or you're into therapies, it gives you that real understanding of, how can I hold better space for my clients? How can I give them better results that are longer lasting, that aren't just going to be like, oh, I've had a breakthrough, and then 2 weeks later they're back in with the same problem. And really show up in a way that is true for you and your purpose and your path, so you become yourself.
Okay.
The transformation I've seen with my first cohort is astounding. Like, I have seen people who have gone from charging 50, 60, 70 pounds for a one-off session and just kind of playing it really small, into selling £3,000 packages and like really standing in that and working with actually the people that they were always meant to work with, like the executives and the VIPs, but they never felt confident to do that. And it's just happened because our purpose is activated. So it comes into, who am I and how do I serve? And I trust that, and I let that guide me. I let that flow through me. And that becomes my guide rather than the overlaying strategies that have been guiding me for so long.
So can this be combined with other modalities that people practice? Like, can you combine Akashic Reiki with maybe sound healing or shamanic healing?
1000%.
Or is it just standalone?
1000%. Like,
Okay.
I have created something that encompasses so many different techniques that I've learned over the last nearly 20 years in this space, and longer actually, with the work from my grandma. Like, I can't stand here as the founder of Akashic Reiki and go like, this is it, this is how it's done. Especially when one of the principles and pillars of Akashic Reiki is evolution and growth, and that it's activating your soul purpose. The thing I don't want is 100,000 Akashic Reiki practitioners just repeating and keeping it stagnant. For me, this is the path of evolution and growth. And actually, as we move on more to the teacher's path, the masters that I'm working with at the moment, we're really delving into like, what is their magic and how is that infusing into Akashic Reiki? Because this isn't just this is the thing, these are the techniques. The flame is doing the work. The techniques I've brought in to anchor that and to increase that and to accelerate, if you like, the work that we're doing from a human level. And now I've got one of my students, she works really deeply with crystals. And so she's looking at the ways that she can add them in so the crystal can anchor the flame. I've got one who, she is a Qigong instructor, and she is working with, she's created body movements that are incorporating this. Right. I want this to evolve. I don't want this to be, well, Melissa said it was this way, so there it is. What I see is a evolution and growth, and the more people that bring it in, the stronger the field's becoming, and that excites the life out of me.
Fantastic. So just there's a couple more kind of questions that have come up. So one of them, I know that the focus for you has been on the, obviously, Akashic Reiki, but you do have a soul school. So there are other training courses that you offer as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Soul School it used to be a standalone training. Now I'm only going to be offering it to Akashic Reiki practitioners. So that would be like the level 1 and 2. And then the Soul School really is, well, now I want to read the records. I want to go in and do the soul retrievals and the past life work and all of that. So that will be available for my level 2s. And then I have Soul Space, which is my...
I was about to come on to your community membership, Soul Space. Yeah.
I love. So this is where all my channeling comes in, the intuitive work, the support really of this continual knowing that my soul, my energy actually plays a massive part in my life, but also my life plays a massive part in my soul. And it's messy and it's hard to be a human, right? And I think especially when we're on this path and we're trying to make sense of what's going on, So Soul Space really is like my home for that. Like you can come and we do coaching every month and people bring everything. What's happening with my business? What's happening with my life? What's happening with someone had a complaint and how do I deal with that from an energetic point of view and from a human point of view? And as a therapist and as a coach and as a business mentor and all of the things I do, it all comes into that space. And it's become really the home for my channeling and the channel that wants to come through. So we do like live channeling Q&As, which are loads of fun. And there's a whole library of meditations and activations and how to channel and all sorts of goodies in there to live a more intuitive and coherent life.
Absolutely. So I would absolutely love to chat for hours, but obviously in this realm we're constrained through time and space. So I'm just going to ask you, what would be your key message to leave our viewers today? Is there anything that you feel you'd like to share? And then also after this, I was going to ask you if you could bring through a wisdom or a healing from Akashic Reiki, just to provide a taster for viewers. So if you want to combine that into one,
Yeah.
good, perhaps, yeah.
I'm thinking I do. So I'm going to invite you to have a little taste or feel of the Akashic Reiki and the flame and what that feels. So if it feels good for you, your eyes can be open or closed. If you're walking or driving, like please don't close your eyes. But I just want you to be aware of where you are in space, where you are in time, like your presence, you're here now. And let's just get really present. So just notice what's happening in your mind. So maybe you can hear my voice, maybe you can feel the floor or where your hands are or the temperature of the room around you. And just begin to notice what's happening underneath that. So of course you have your breath and your body doing their functions. And our mind, our beautiful mind, which always has something to say. And today, I'm not going to ask you to bypass your mind or to close it or to brush it away. I just want you to get really present. So just notice what is happening in your mind, what thoughts, what suggestions, what feelings. And maybe you can even just ask your mind, what do you want to tell me today? Your brain, psyche, what do you want to tell me today? What's going on? And let's give it the gift of full presence right now. And as you do this, you begin to get a glimpse of what you're actually writing in your records at the moment. Because maybe under those thoughts, there are future projections of memories from the past. There's something physical going on in the body. Maybe even as I say that, the body starts to speak with a twinge or a tension. And today, without trying to get rid of it, we're just going to be present as I bring through the flame. And in fact, you can bring through your soul, your love, your light. Just your willingness and your curiosity to really just be knowing and present with it. I wonder what I'm writing in my records in this moment. And I wonder what happens when we just bring in this frequency, this suggestion of maybe it's love for you, maybe it's gratitude for you, maybe it's peace for you, maybe it's acceptance for you. And if you can't do any of those, what about a willingness and openness? And just imagine that frequency, maybe it comes as a color, as a shape, as a sound, as a word, as a movement in the body. Maybe your hand wants to go to a certain place in the body. Just notice what happens to that thought, that feeling, that memory, that sensation. Notice what happens. And you don't have to do anything apart from say, I see you, I feel you, I know you. And if you don't see or feel or know, just say, I'm willing to see and feel and know. And if you can, I'll love that part of myself that feels and sees and knows. And just know that in this moment, what you have recorded is a potent record of high frequency, of openness, of evolution. And so I ask you, without the need to grip or know, what now? Now this frequency is held in your being. What now? Is there a step? Is there a word? Is there a goal? Is there a future? Is there an affirmation? Is there something that's being asked of you that you can then say or do or know that will continue this frequency, this trajectory of love, of willingness, of open? And just trust that whether it's revealed to you now or sometime down the line, that you can be guided by this. And you can choose to stay in this space for a moment or to start to bring yourself back into your being, into the world, into this present moment. As the records come and say to you, you're doing exactly what you need to do. You are exactly where you are. Nothing better could have happened because it didn't happen, and it's happened as it is, and there's so much more for you. There's so much more you are becoming. And everything that you are and everything that you have been is loved unconditionally. And we are here and we are supporting you. And we just ask you to remember that you are a soul, that you are divinity, and that you have everything within you to get you through whatever challenge you're facing. And these challenges are here to strengthen you, not harm you. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. That was lovely. I'm sure that will be really beautifully received by all who engage with that. And it was such a pleasure to spend this time. As I said, I could spend hours just chatting. But unfortunately, we have to bring it to an end. But for viewers, please do subscribe, follow, like the channel if you like the content. And also, I will include Melissa's links in the narrative, where you can obviously feel free to look at the website. There'll be more information. And stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you so much, Melissa. Always a pleasure to connect.
You too.
Thanks, everyone.